Hey guys, it's Rob Dabney with ADV Pulse, and we're here today with the 2018 Africa Twin Adventure Sports CRF1000L2. It's still pretty much the same Africa Twin underneath. You've got the 1000cc parallel twin with the 270-degree crank, and it puts out about 94 horsepower. You can get it with either the manual transmission or the DCT, and that's the dual clutch transmission, which is basically an automatic with paddle shifters on the handlebar. Some of the primary differences with this bike and the standard Africa Twin in terms of the touring capabilities are a 3-inch taller windscreen. There's this new flush mount rack here that's a bit more streamlined. You also have a heated grip button, and of course the big tank, which is now 6.4 gallons. So this puts you at a good 250, 260 mile range. Now, as far as the off-road specific changes, they've increased the protection with standard crash bars, also this nice big rally style skid plate. You've got the bigger foot pegs. They're still not huge, but they're much larger than the old ones. And we've also got bar risers that put you in a little more aggressive position standing up, and there's also this flat seat. So this is in the high setting. This seat also has a low setting as well, but this flat seat allows you to move around a little bit more on the bike, get a little bit better body positioning when you're off-road. One of the unique things they changed on the bike is gave it ride-by-wire, so no more throttle cable, everything is electronic. And what that allows them to do is give you rider modes, and you've got 4 different modes. You've got gravel, urban, touring, and a user mode, which is completely configurable to your own tastes. One of the most exciting things about this new model is that it has a different suspension than the standard Africa Twin. They added about an extra inch of travel both front and rear, and also increased the spring rates a little and changed the damping to give it a little more bump absorption. That also raised the ground clearance a little bit, about 0.8 inches. So that's going to allow you to go faster and harder through those big whoops and deserts and rocky terrain. They've also beefed up the right foot peg mount so that it can handle rockier terrain a little better too. Some little minor details. They've added the 12-volt accessory plug as an included option, but the one disappointment is they still haven't put the center stand on that as standard equipment. We've had the bike for over a month now, and we've got to do a lot of different adventures on it. Got it out off-road, got it on some street testing, and just a variety of different terrain to see what it can do. So we did some highway miles on this bike, and one of the big improvements is this windscreen. When I would ride the old Africa Twin, the wind would sort of hit me right there in the forehead, and that'll weigh you down on a long ride. With the new one, it's about 3 inches taller, and the wind's starting to go right over your head. So taller rider like me, 6'2", it's a great windscreen. I wouldn't say it's the best, there's still a little bit of a choppy air coming around it, but it's a pretty good windscreen now, and definitely blocks the wind much better than the old one. As far as the bars, it's got a little more sweep, so it's a nice comfortable position. It puts you in for longer distances. It's very comfortable, and as I mentioned before, the seat's much more comfortable. It's taller, so your knees aren't as bent, and it's less of a problem with the cramping on longer rides. So as far as highway cruising, the bike is much better than the standard Africa Twin. In the twisties, the standard Africa Twin is a great bike for that kind of riding, but now you've got a little bit of a taller bike now. It's higher up with the seat. You're not sitting down in the bike, you're kind of on top of it. So you've also got a higher bar, and the suspension is bringing the whole bike up higher, so it really has more of a dirt bike feel to it on those twisty roads. Still goes good, but I wouldn't be taking on any sport bikes anytime soon on this bike. Riding this bike out in the open desert is amazing with the new suspension. It's got a lot more bump absorption for those high-speed whoops, big hits. It's also got the ground clearance, so you're a lot less likely to bottom out. It's a really great off-road bike. And the interesting thing is, this bike just handles a heavier rider way better, and you can load it up with luggage, and it has a nice feel in the dirt, in more technical, high-speed terrain than it did before. Once you get into the slower, more technical terrain, it does feel like a much bigger bike. It's a little heavier, and with the taller seat height, it can be a little bit more cumbersome if you don't have long legs. So on steep descents, you definitely notice the bigger bike, the more weight, tight turns. Even though it's got a great turning radius, it's a little bit higher center of gravity, so it can be a little top heavy and easier to tip over. And if you're a shorter rider, you can improve the ergos by just simply getting smaller bar risers and going for the optional low seat. As far as the power on this bike when you're riding it, max power output hasn't changed, but you do notice a little peppier feel in the mid-range, which is nice. The one thing that's changed a lot is the way the ride-by-wire works, and also it may have something to do with the DCT, but off idle, it's super smooth when you're trying to do sort of the finesse riding off-road through rocky terrain. So it just lets you finesse that throttle a lot more without that jerkiness, without that lurch. So that is a really nice improvement. But I did notice that it doesn't have as much punch as it used to when you're out there more in open desert type riding, moving fast, and you just kind of want to blip the throttle sometimes and pop over a rise or something like that. It's sort of now a little bit subdued in that pop. So you gain a little bit, but you give up a little something there too. This bike ticks off a lot of boxes for me, but I do feel a little conflicted about it. In one sense, they improved the premium touring capabilities of the bike with the bigger windscreen and the heated grips and things like that, but they really didn't go all the way with that. Why didn't they add, say, tubeless tires, or why didn't they add cruise control or an adjustable windscreen? Some of those things that the more premium touring oriented bikes have. Now on the other hand, they also improved the off-road aggressiveness of this bike compared to the standard Africa Twin by adding extra protection and more bump absorption and better ground clearance, which is great, but they could have taken that a little bit farther by lightening the bike, going with the smaller tank instead of the big tank, and a smaller windscreen, and just make this the real off-road focused version. But there's no question this bike is a capable adventure bike. It's also very versatile. It's got a very responsive suspension. It's got an exciting exhaust note, and I have yet to hear anybody complain about how it looks. I think if they put cruise control on it and maybe lower the CG a little bit, and of course put on a center stand as standard equipment, that could really push it over the top. So we'll see how this bike evolves. But overall, I really enjoyed riding this bike, and it was a lot of fun.